Hello guys and welcome to an exciting video on this channel. Now I always have found it a bit difficult, a bit confusing to create KDP interiors when I'm trying to create the interiors with bleed. So it is always easy to create the interiors without bleed. It's just so simple, just select the size and you just create it. But when you are using the bleed in your interiors, you have to calculate the bleed area, and then there is margin, and then there is the gutter size. So it is kind of a bit of you can say a hectic to calculate all of these areas. So recently I have found out an easiest way to calculate all of these things and to easily start creating your KDP interiors with bleed. So in this video I'm going to show you my process of creating interiors with bleed, and hopefully you will find it to be useful. So without any further delay, let's get started. So here I am on this KDP help section, and in this section I'm on this page print options, and you should I think you should bookmark this page because you have continuously have to check these different tables in which they mention the different size and then the pages and all that. So make sure that you bookmark this page, and I'll put the link in the description below as well. So let's say I want to create an interior with 6 by 9 inches, because that's the can say that mostly used size for interiors on this KDP platform. So let's use 6 by 9 inches, and then black and white paper. So for black and white paper we'll need at least 24 pages and the maximum number of 828 pages. So this is we need to create the number of pages for our interiors within these limits. Now it's easy to calculate to start creating the interior without bleed. You just select the size 6 and by 9 inches, and you start designing your interior. But if you are going to use the bleed for interiors, you might be creating some kind of composition notebook in which the lines go towards the edges of your page, and or maybe you are creating a storybook and your illustrations need to go towards the edges of the book, or beyond the edges. So you can easily see it here in the examples what they mean by the bleed, what actually the bleed does for your interior. So this is something that you can read to understand what and why you can use the bleed in your interiors. So the easiest calculation that they have posted here in this is this one, that if you want to create any interior with bleed, you need to add 0.125 inches towards the height, towards the top and towards the bottom. So totally it will be 0.25 inches high, you can say more higher than the normal size. And for the width of the page you just add 0.125 inches. So that is the easiest calculation. But sometimes because it also depends on the number of pages that you have for your interior, so you will have to calculate the that gutter size, the inside area. Actually this one here you can see here, this inside area you have to calculate it as well, so that your text or important kind of information does not go beyond inside this gutter area. So for that purpose they have provided a calculator, as you can see here, try our calculator. So let's go to the calculator page. So here on this section KDP tools and resources, you will find out the calculator that they provide. So you can easily calculate those areas, the margins, the bleed and the gutter size. So for paperback, because we are using KDP for creating a no content book or low content books, so I'll download this template, try templates to actually this is the templates that is they are going to help you create cover for that. But for normal size, I think there is another template available here, yeah, this one. So paperback file setup calculator. So if you download this file and open up in Microsoft Excel, you will be able to easily calculate these sizes. And let me show you how you can use this calculator that they have provided to calculate your different areas for your interior. So let's download and open up in Microsoft Excel. So I have opened up that file in Microsoft Excel, and it is going to help you a lot because you can easily see the different page size, different sizes, trim sizes, and also the number of pages that you can have, maximum number of pages that you can have for that particular size. So let's start editing this, and let's start to find out what bleed area, what margin area, and what is the gutter area we would require for our 6 by 9 inches bleed notebook. So I'll select black and white paper, and in size, yes, I need 6 by 9 inches. You can select different sizes according to your requirement. And for pages, let's say we need about 150 pages. Now we'll select whether we need a manuscript or interior with no bleed, or a manuscript or interior with bleed. As we need it with bleed, so let's click on this option in the middle one. So once you click it, it is going to show you the example, or you can say the template, where all these different sizes are mentioned, and you can easily use this template or use this example to create the interiors. So the total height of our interior would be 9.25 inches, that is this one mentioned here, and the total width of our interior will be 6.125 inches. As I already mentioned previously, that on the width you add 0.125 inches, and on the height you add 0.25 inches, because 0.125 at the top and 0.125 at the bottom, it total becomes 0.25 inches. So that is 9.25 inches. Now on this side, they in this area they have mentioned, let me just zoom in a bit. So on this area you can see that the bleed area that they have mentioned is this 1.125 inches. That is understandable. Then there is a margin area, that is the outside margin area, and that will be 0.25 inches. And then the total of this bleed plus margin area will be 0.375 inches, and then the inside gutter margin area is going to be 0.375 inches. Now in case you don't have you can say Microsoft Excel SS, and you might want to use this template on Google Docs or Google Sheets as well. I have tried that, but this particular template does not work on Google Sheets, and I have tried some other software as well, but this doesn't work on those as well. It only works in this Microsoft Excel. So try to use this software if you want to use this particular template. But if you don't want to use it, don't have access to it, you can easily you can say that make a guess about creating your interiors with bleed. And let me tell you how you can do that. If you don't have access to this template and calculations, you can simply select 0.5 inches of the gutter size on both sides, on this page and on the right page as well. So 0.5 so this total gutter size will be 1 inches, and on this outside you can say this bleed and the margin. So bleed is always going to be horizontal bleed is always going to be 0.125 inches, as they already mentioned on their KDP help section. So always bleed will be 0.125 inches horizontally, and vertically you have to add 0.125 inches at the top and at the bottom. And now comes the point of the margin. For this case they have used 0.25 margin, but this margin will change depend upon the number of pages, number of the size of your interior. So if you just want to be safe, make sure that you use 0.375 inches of margin as well, or maybe 0.5 inches maximum, 0.5 inches margin, if you just want to be safe all around. So let's start creating the interiors using Affinity Publisher, using these guidelines. So I have opened up Affinity Publisher. Let's go to File, New, and let's create 6 by 9 inches document. So 6 by 9 inches document, as I've already mentioned, we need to create it with bleed. Now there are options here in which we can use these bleed calculate actually bleed options here, in which we can put up the bleed areas here. But I try to create it manually. I try to include it inside this document. I don't want to use this bleed area, because once you are going to export it as a PDF, you will have to select that bleed area, and sometimes it messes up while you're designing the whole process. So I try to avoid this avoid using this area. So let's Also, I don't want any kind of margins as well at this moment, because I'm going to create it manually. So I don't want it at this moment of creating the whole document. So as already known, the horizontal we need to add 0.15 inches, 0.125 inches actually. So I'll add 6.125 inches. That what we need horizontally. For vertically we add 0.25 inches, so 9.25 inches vertically. We need to have at least 300 dpi, and I usually use these document units in inches. You can use any other unit. And also I need to have you can say facing pages, and also I need a master page as well. So we need at least one pages. So facing pages, why I'm using facing pages, you will understand it in a minute. And horizontally, that's all, everything is fine. So let's create it. Okay, now let's go to the master page, and as I already told you, I have included the bleed inside this document. So we need to mark this area, identify this area, so that we can easily put our rest of the design inside that bleed area. So for that purpose I use this rectangle tool, and let's create the vertical rectangle from top to the bottom. For the width, currently let's not think about the width, because we can change it easily. So as I already said, the horizontal bleed area is going to be 0.125 inches. So in this transform area we put the width to be 0.125 inches. The vertical, you can say this size is actually okay, it is already 9.25 inches. So now that we have created our bleed rectangle, we can move it, and move it on the left side of this page. And now we have our bleed area. For the left page, let's make it a darker color. Maybe let's use this lightness and make it darker. Maybe you can use RGB sliders as well, because you are going to just remove it later on. So so this is the bleed area on the left side. We can simply copy it and paste it on the other side, but before we do that we need to calculate the margin area as well. So let's go back to that Excel sheet. So here they have mentioned the margin to be 0.25 inches. So we need to create another rectangle with this much of width, 0.25 inches. So let's create another rectangle the same height, and instead of this much size we need to add 0.25 inches of this margin. So now this is let's change the color so that we can easily identify it. Let's make it orange red, something like that. Now this is our margin area, and it is going to snap as soon as you can say that reach our margin, bleed triangle rectangle, sorry. If I select this margin rectangle, you can easily see that horizontal distance from the side, it is already 0.125 inches, which is the area of the bleed that we have already created. Now we have our bleed rectangle, and also we have our margin rectangle. We can easily copy it towards the other side now. So let's select both of these rectangles. Let's actually name these. So this one is actually a margin, and this one is the bleed. So let's select these, let's copy it, and let's control V to paste it. Now it is already pasted. Now we can move it on the other side. As soon as it snaps towards the other side, we are going to flip it horizontally. Now we have our bleed and the margin on the both sides of the pages. Now it's time to calculate the size of the gutter, the inside gutter. So let's go back to the template, and on this they have mentioned that the gutter should be 0.375 inches. Let's create another rectangle of that width, so the same height, and let's change the width to 0.375 inches. Let's change its color. Now we have created you can say the gutter area on this side. Let's copy it and let's name it gutter. So let's copy it and then paste it and move it on the other side of on this page as well. Okay, now that we have created our horizontal areas, the bleed, the margin and the gutter, now let's create the vertical areas as well. As I've already told you, the vertical height you have to add 0.125 inches at the top and then 0.125 inches at the bottom as well. So let's go back to the template. Again, as you can see that in addition to that bleed on the vertical side, there is going to be you can say that actually the margin area as well, and you can, I think, easily find out what is the margin, and that is the same margin that is used on this in this zoomed in view. So we're going to use the same margin. So let's first create this bleed area. So I'll create a horizontal rectangle, make sure that it is the same size. Actually we can actually bring it towards the center because we can then copy it on the other side. It is easy to calculate in this way. So width 6.125 inches, that is the width of our page, but height we need it to be 0.125 inches. So that is our height, and we can move it at the top. Again, this is the bleed area, so we can just make it the same color as the other bleed area we have on the horizontal side. So for that purpose, I'm going to use this color picker tool and select that blue area. Now again, we need to calculate our margin area. The margin area is the same, 0.37 or actually 0.25 inches. Yes, it is 0.25 inches. So let's create another rectangle, make it 0.25 inches. So instead of 0.794, we need to add 0.25 inches. Now again, we need to color it the same as the other margin so that we can easily identify it. Now we have our margins at the top areas as well. Let's name them. Let's name it top bleed and then top margin. You can just name it margin. I tend to do it in this way. So let's select both of these, let's copy it and then paste it. Let's move it on the other side. Now we need to select all of these four because we want to copy it towards the bottom as well. So let's copy it, let's paste it, and let's move it towards the bottom. Let's flip it vertically. Now we have our basic page, the basic out you can see the layout a bit of setup. Let's select all of these layers and let's group them together. So Control G, or you can select that option, group, where I'm going to group it, and then make sure that you lock this group because we don't want to accidentally move these layers at all. Now that we have our, you can say, document set up, we can easily start creating our interior, the whatever we want to design it. So let's, for example, let's create maybe a table, and we have created a table maybe this size, and I want to reduce the number of, you can say, horizontal lines and the columns as well. Let's extend it towards this area and this area as well. Now one thing that you can do is that if you are going to create a simple, you can say, a line notebook, you can actually extend it all over towards this side and then towards the other edge as well, in case you want to create it in this way. So I don't want to do that. I just want to create it inside this area, and let me show you why I would do that. Let's reduce it even further. Let's make it 6, and then let's increase the size. So I have this line set up. Then I might want to create, you can say, a box area on this side, in which I might put an illustration. So I'll just put a box area that is going beyond this towards the edge of this side. So instead of any kind of fill, I don't want any kind of fill, I might want a stroke size, and for stroke width, let's use, I think, 1 point is enough. So I might put some kind of illustration here, some kind of information here that is supposed to go beyond this. You can see the boundary towards the edge of this page. I might create another you can say circular shape, and I might put another information here, and that is going inside this boundary. Or you can say that you can create another document, another kind of information that you want on both side of this pages, and so that can be done as well. So you can easily see that how you can set up this whole document. The whole purpose of this video is not going to tell you, or you can show you how to create the complete interior. It was just to show you how you can easily calculate these areas, the margin, the gutter and the bleed areas, and then start creating it. Now let's say I'm done with it. Actually I'm not, but let's say I'm done with it, and let's create additional pages. So I'm going to add new pages and a number of pages too, because we are currently using facing pages, remember that. So we need to add 2 more pages. Master page, we want to use the same thing. Power of this master page is that if we just have to create the design once, and the rest of the design is actually updated on all of the pages that we might create. So this is how I usually create interiors when I'm creating interiors with bleed. So when I'm going to export it, I'm going to simply hide this, these areas that I have just created at the beginning. So I just hide it and export it as a PDF, or I can simply delete it and export it as a PDF, while keeping this file, this publisher files as is. I'm not going to delete this file and or maybe save this file without this bleed area. I always keep these bleed and all of these margin areas inside this publisher document, but when I'm going to export it as a PDF, I'm not going to include these bleed areas, because that's what it is supposed to do it. Now as you can already see that we have these master page and other pages as the facing pages, but KDP doesn't support these facing pages. So how we can split that up? So we can go to, I think towards the document setup, and instead of facing pages, I'm going to just select uncheck it, and it is going to give us you can say the simplest option of these pages. Now on this side you can see that we have, let's say this one, we have our you can say that boundary areas going beyond it. It is because on the master page we have let's hide this one. So on the master page A is empty, and the master page B is actually all of the whole thing is actually created on the master page B, and that is because we have created it a group and then locked it. So in order to do you can say that keep these boundaries and all that on the separate pages, let's go back by pressing Ctrl Z a couple of times. So let's ungroup this whole thing. First we need to unlock this, and then we need to ungroup this thing. Okay, now that we have ungrouped it, let's hide these tables for a moment, and let's select this side on the left side, all of these areas on the left side, let's group it together, and then let's select the right side areas and then group it together. Now we have grouped them both on the separate areas. Now let's go back to the document setup and then uncheck the facing pages. Now once we have unchecked the facing pages, our bleed and margin areas are actually on the proper pages. So you can easily see it is easily available on the proper pages as well. Now you don't have to hide this on each and every of you can say the page. You can just hide it on the master page and you are good to go. So that's how I create my interiors with bleed, and hopefully you have found this video and these tips to be useful, and if so, make sure that you like the video. And if you're interested in watching more of the same content, more of the same interesting tips, make sure that you subscribe to this channel, and don't forget to press that bell icon so that you can be notified about my future videos as well. And thank you for watching.